It happened on a Tuesday morning, one of those calm, quiet mornings where you expect peace, not heartbreak, the kind of morning where the sunlight falls soft on the curtains and the smell of coffee fills the house. But that morning, all I remember is the sound, a heavy click, the lock turning from the other side of the door. My son, my only child, had just kicked me out of his house. For a second, I didn't believe it. I thought maybe he slammed the door too hard, or maybe the wind had caught it. But then I heard his footsteps moving away, slow and steady, down the hallway. Every step sounded like a goodbye I never agreed to, like someone closing a chapter without letting me read the last page. I stood there on the porch, holding a basket of laundry I had just folded for him. My hands were still warm from the dryer, but the air outside felt cold. The sky hung low and gray, like even the morning didn't want to look at me. I wanted to knock, to ask him what I had done wrong, but the truth hit me before my hand reached the door. He wasn't coming back. My chest tightened. My heart beat so fast it hurt. Every scraped knee I had bandaged, every lunch I had packed, every birthday candle I had lit, it all flashed before my eyes in that single breath. He was the boy I had raised alone, the boy I had prayed for when I had nothing else left. And now, he was the man shutting me out like I was a stranger from the street. I called his name softly. No answer. Just the faint sound of a car engine starting in the driveway. I turned, and through the blur of my own tears, I saw him get in, his face cold, unreadable. Then the tires rolled, and he was gone. Just like that. For a long minute, I stood there frozen. My mind refused to believe it. Maybe it was temporary. Maybe he just needed space. Maybe this wasn't how our story ended. But the silence that followed was too heavy to lie. The house that once echoed with laughter now stood still, quiet, watching me, like it already knew something I didn't. Then, something strange caught my eye. A faint shadow near the side of the garage. It moved quick, just enough to make my stomach twist. Someone, or something, was there. I stepped closer, slowly, each breath shaking in my throat. The wind shifted, carrying a cold that didn't belong to morning air. It felt aware, like the air itself was holding its breath. And then I saw it. A small black camera, half hidden behind the planter near the wall. I blinked, thinking I was imagining it. But no, it was real. The tiny red light blinked once, like an eye that had just realized it was seen. I froze, because that camera wasn't mine, and it definitely wasn't part of any security system I'd installed. That's when my heart dropped, because suddenly, this wasn't just about my son. Someone had been watching me. I looked around, scanning the walls, the corners of the porch, even the window above the kitchen sink. Another camera, smaller, hidden behind a lantern, and another one near the mailbox, disguised in the ivy. How long had they been there? Who put them there? And more importantly, why? For a moment, my mind tried to make sense of it. Maybe my son had installed them for safety. Maybe he was worried about me. But deep down, I knew better. These weren't placed for protection. They were placed for watching, for recording, for proof. My breath turned shallow. My fingers trembled as I reached toward one of them, brushing the cold metal lens. A small red blinked again, alive, unblinking, knowing. I took a step back. My throat went dry. My knees felt weak. Every instinct in me screamed that something wasn't right. And then I noticed something else. Across the street, a white sedan parked by the curb. I'd never seen it before. The windows were tinted to dark. I could have sworn someone was sitting inside, but I couldn't tell. I blinked once, Twice, the car door opened, then quietly shut. The engine never started. The car just sat there. I wanted to believe it was just paranoia, that I was just a broken-hearted mother imagining things. But the camera light kept blinking, watching me, waiting for my next move. I slowly stepped away, pulling my sweater tighter around me. The air felt heavier now, pressing against my chest. I walked toward the gate, but something in me made me stop. A whisper in my gut said, "Don't turn your back." So I didn't. I stood there, facing that house. The house where I had once laughed, cooked, prayed, and loved. And now, all I could see were hidden eyes staring back at me. I wanted to scream, to run, to ask him why. But I didn't. I just stood there, silent, confused, heartbroken. Because when your own child locks you out, the pain cuts deeper than words. It makes you question everything, even your memories. Then, something else clicked. That camera wasn't new. I had seen it before, weeks ago, sitting on his desk inside, half covered by papers. I had asked him about it, and he'd said it was just a work project, something for his home automation. I didn't think much of it then, but now, it felt like a lie. That realization hit me like ice water. My son had lied to me. But why would he? Why would he need cameras? Why hide them? Why pretend? I didn't know the answers yet, but something told me this was only the beginning. And to understand why that camera was there, I had to go back to the weeks before he changed, back to the strange whispers I ignored. Back to the moment I stopped being his mother and became something else, someone he didn't trust. What I discovered next would leave me frozen for a very different reason. To understand what really happened that morning, you need to know how we got there, how love can turn into silence, and how trust can fade without anyone noticing. My name is Lillian. I'm 56 years old, and for most of my life, I've worked as a live-in nanny. I've cared for other people's children since I was 22. I've watched first steps, heard first words, and cleaned up more spilled juice than I can count. Families came and went, but I stayed the same, steady, quiet, grateful. When my own son, Marcus, was born, I promised myself he'd never feel the kind of emptiness I did growing up. His father left when Marcus was 2. After that, it was just us, two hearts learning how to survive. I worked double shifts, sometimes 3, just to keep the lights on. I'd come home after midnight, still in my nanny uniform, and find him asleep on the couch waiting for me. He used to call me his hero. He'd draw little pictures of us, me in my apron, him holding my hand, and tape them on the fridge. One day, Mama, he'd say, "You won't have to work so hard. I'll take care of you." And for a long time, I believed him. When Marcus got older, things started changing. He stopped talking as much, spent more time on his phone. His friends weren't the kind of kids I knew how to talk to. All fast cars, loud music, and expensive sneakers. He wanted more from life, and I didn't blame him. But somewhere along the way, I started feeling like an outsider in my own home. Still, when he got his first real job in the city, I was proud. He worked for a home security company, installing smart locks and camera systems for big suburban houses. He said he wanted to help people feel safe. I thought it was noble. When he offered for me to move in with him last year, I cried. It felt like a full circle, a son taking care of the mother who once carried him through storms. I packed my things into suitcases, left my nanny job, and moved into his newly renovated home. It was beautiful, shiny floors, big windows, everything controlled by an app on his phone. At first, it felt like peace. For the first time in years, I didn't have to rush anywhere. I cooked, I cleaned, I tended the garden. He said, "You don't have to do all that, Ma. Just rest." But old habits die hard. I liked taking care of him. It made me feel useful again. But soon, little things started to feel off. Some mornings, I'd wake up and find my bedroom door slightly open, even though I was sure I'd locked it. I'd ask Marcus, and he'd laugh it off. "Maybe you forgot again," he'd say. Once, I found one of my old nanny notebooks, the kind where I used to track kids' feeding times, placed neatly on the kitchen counter. I hadn't touched that book in years. Then there were the sounds. Tiny, mechanical clicks coming from strange places. The corner of the living room, near the hallway vent, once even behind the mirror in my bathroom. When I told Marcus, he said it was just the new motion sensors calibrating. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But something about his tone, too calm, too practiced, made my stomach twist. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to get some water. The house was dark and still, except for a soft glow under Marcus's office door. I peeked through the crack. He was sitting at his computer, watching something. The light from the screen flickered across his face. He didn't look like my son. He looked trapped, like someone carrying a secret too heavy to tell. The next morning, he acted like nothing happened, smiling, asking if I wanted pancakes. But I couldn't stop thinking about that image. His face half lit, half hidden. A week later, I noticed he started keeping his office locked. "Work files," he said. "Confidential stuff." I didn't push. After all, he was an adult. But the more I stayed, the more I felt like I didn't belong. Like every move I made was being measured somehow. One afternoon, I went to water the plants by the front porch and saw a black van parked across the street. No company logo, no plates I could read. The same van appeared again 2 days later, then again on the weekend. Always empty, always parked facing the house. I mentioned it to Marcus. He said, "Ma, you've been watching too many crime shows. Relax." He smiled when he said it, but his eyes didn't match his mouth. And maybe that's when it started, the quiet between us. The kind that fills a house like smoke. The kind that doesn't hurt at first, until you realize it's already suffocating you. I tried to tell myself I was imagining things. That the cameras he installed were harmless. That the clicks I heard were just the house settling. But deep down, something didn't sit right. I knew that feeling. I'd seen it before, in families I'd worked for, right before things went wrong. Sometimes I'd catch him watching me, not in a cruel way, but like he was studying something he didn't recognize. Once, I asked him, "Do you still see me as your mom, or just someone in your way?" He didn't answer. He just turned back to his computer. That silence said everything. From that day, he became distant. Short texts instead of conversations. Locked doors instead of open ones. And then came the final straw. The day I found the small note on the fridge. Just one sentence. "Don't go into the garage." I laughed at first. I thought maybe he was fixing something dangerous, or storing paint, or cleaning chemicals. But when I asked, he looked up at me with a face I didn't recognize. "Please, Ma," he said softly. "Just don't." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing that same soft clicking sound. Faint, mechanical, rhythmic, like something alive. I followed it to the hallway, where the air felt colder than the rest of the house. The sound came from behind the garage door. I almost turned back. Almost. But curiosity can be louder than fear sometimes. When I reached for the handle, it was warm. Too warm. like someone had just been there. Then, footsteps behind me. Marcus's voice, low and sharp. "Didn't I tell you not to go in there?" He wasn't angry. He was scared. Of what? I didn't know. But in that moment, I saw something in his eyes. Not hate, not cruelty, but guilt. The kind that comes from hiding something you wish you could undo. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded and walked back to my room. But from that night forward, I slept with the lights on. And I started keeping my phone camera pointed toward the door, just in case. Because I had a feeling, whatever Marcus was hiding in that garage, it was watching me too. And soon, I'd find out exactly how deep that truth went. That night, sleep felt like a stranger. Every sound echoed through the walls. The hum of the fridge, the creak of the floorboards, the faint ticking from the garage. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wondering when my own home had started feeling like someone else's laboratory. By 3 a.m., I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, slipped on my robe, and sat by the window. The black van was back. Same spot, engine off, windows dark, just sitting there like a quiet threat. My heart thudded. Something inside me said, "You have to know the truth, Lillian." The next morning, Marcus left early for work. Or at least, that's what he said. I watched his car disappear down the street before I grabbed my phone and headed toward the garage. My hands were shaking. I kept telling myself it was silly, that I'd find nothing but tools and dust. But part of me already knew this wasn't about tools. When I turned the doorknob, it didn't move. He'd changed the lock. That tiny, metal click hit harder than a slap. I stepped back, staring at the handle like it had betrayed me. My son, my own flesh and blood, had locked me out of a part of my own home. Something broke inside me then, not from anger, but from knowing that somewhere along the way, the boy who once held my hand at night was now hiding something from me. I spent the day in silence. The air in the house felt heavy. Around noon, I started cleaning, just to keep my mind busy. But as I vacuumed near the hallway, I heard a soft buzz, not from the machine, but above it. I looked up. Tucked in the corner of the ceiling, behind the vent cover, was a small, blinking light. At first, I thought it was part of the house's smart system, maybe a sensor. But when I stood on a chair to look closer, I froze. It wasn't a sensor. It was a camera. A tiny, black, motion-activated camera, wired straight through the vent. My heart dropped into my stomach. I followed the vent line with my eyes. One camera near my bedroom, one by the kitchen doorway, one above the living room shelf. How had I not noticed before? I climbed down, my hands trembling, and ran to Marcus's office door. Still locked. I tried the handle anyway. Nothing. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I went outside, found the spare key he kept under the porch mat, and unlocked the window to his office from the side yard. Inside, the air was cold, colder than the rest of the house, like it had been sealed for weeks. His desk was covered in cables and screens, all showing security feeds. Each one was labeled: front door, driveway, kitchen, hallway, and then one that made my breath catch: Mom's room. I clicked on it. The screen lit up with live footage of my bedroom, my bed, my dresser, even the tiny night lamp I kept by the window. For a moment, everything went silent. My heartbeat, my breathing, the world. I just stood there staring, unable to process what I was seeing. It wasn't just one angle. There were three. One camera pointed at the bed, another toward the window, and a third toward the closet. My knees buckled. I sat down on the floor, clutching my chest. My son, the boy I raised alone, the one I gave everything for, had been watching me. Why? My mind raced. Was he in trouble? Being blackmailed? Or had he really turned into something I didn't want to believe? Then I noticed a folder open on his computer, labeled Client Backups. I clicked it. Inside were hundreds of video files, recordings with dates and times, each named after different addresses, families, bedrooms, hallways. It wasn't just me. It was everyone. He hadn't been working for a company. He was the company, installing security cameras, but secretly keeping access for himself. And worst of all, the last folder was labeled TEST, Mom. That's when I heard the front door open. Panic shot through me. I slammed the laptop shut and ducked behind the desk. His footsteps were slow, heavy, deliberate. He was humming the same tune he used to whistle when he was little. That broke me more than anything. The door creaked open. He stood there, staring straight ahead. I could see his reflection in the dark screen. Tense shoulders, eyes cold. Then he walked toward the desk. I held my breath. He reached out and touched the laptop. Mom, he said quietly, you shouldn't have done that. My heart stopped. He knew. I stood up slowly, trying to keep my voice calm. Marcus, what is this? What are you doing? He didn't answer. He just stared at me, jaw tight. For a second, I thought he might cry. Instead, he said, you wouldn't understand. Try me, I said, tears blurring my vision. You've been recording me. Why? What have you become? He finally looked at me. Really looked. It's not like that, Ma. You think I wanted this. You think I enjoy watching you like that. I was testing the system, making sure it worked. I had to use someone I trust. Trust. I snapped. You invaded my privacy. You made me feel safe in a house that was watching me. He flinched but didn't back down. I'm protecting you, he said quietly. The world's dangerous. People break in. People steal. People don't spy on their own mothers. I shouted, my voice cracking. The silence that followed was unbearable. For the first time, I saw guilt in his eyes. Real, raw guilt. Then he said something that chilled me to my core. They made me do it. Who? He looked away. You don't want to know. Before I could ask more, his phone buzzed. He checked the screen, face pale, then whispered, they're watching the feed right now. That was it. I ran. I grabbed my purse and keys, shoved open the front door, and didn't stop until I was halfway down the street. The black van was still there, but this time, it wasn't empty. Two men sat inside, both in dark suits, both staring at me through tinted glass. One lifted a phone to his ear. The other smiled, just a small, knowing smile. I turned and ran faster. My hands were shaking too much to even unlock my own car. I hid behind the neighbor's hedges and called 911. But the line crackled, then went dead. When I looked back toward the house, Marcus was standing in the doorway, watching me. His face was blank, unreadable. I'll never forget what he said next. Go, Ma, just go, before they come for you too. And then, he closed the door. That was the last time I saw my son inside that house. The next 24 hours would unravel everything. Who those men were, what Marcus had gotten himself into, and the real reason behind those cameras. But I wasn't ready for what came next, because the truth didn't just destroy his life. It almost destroyed mine. The morning the investigation concluded, silence filled the house that once echoed with laughter. It felt hollow, stripped of innocence, like a crime scene without bodies. I walked from room to room, tracing my fingers over empty counters and bare walls. Every corner whispered memories, small handprints, crayons left on the floor. The smell of Marcus's old cologne lingering faintly in the air. Outside, the sun was bright, but it didn't feel warm. The streetlights, the same ones that once reflected the blinking red from the hidden cameras, flickered quietly in rhythm with my heartbeat. Now, they weren't watching me. They were lighting my way forward. The police had recovered enough evidence to dismantle the surveillance network. Hundreds of families were relieved to know their lives hadn't been permanently stolen. Marcus's courage, his whistleblowing, had exposed a network no one could have stopped alone. And yet, I was left with a hollow victory. The hero was missing, and the villain was faceless. I remember the day the verdict came down. The media called it a breakthrough in personal surveillance law. But to me, it was more personal than that. I sat in a quiet room, clutching a folded piece of paper. The last letter Marcus sent before the operation. My hands shook. Even the handwriting was different, smaller, uncertain, almost apologetic. Ma, I did what I had to do. I'm sorry for everything. I love you. I read it again and again, each word etched into my mind, each line a reminder that love sometimes comes wrapped in fear, bravery, and unimaginable sacrifice. I felt tears slip down my cheeks, unashamed, raw, and cleansing. Justice, I realized, isn't loud. It isn't flashing cameras or headlines. It's quiet. It's the heartbeat in your chest that says, you made it through. For weeks, I replayed every memory with him. The first time I held him in my arms, his laughter bouncing off the walls, the scraped knees I kissed, the countless nights we stayed awake together. Every moment felt like a clue. Every smile a reminder that he was still the boy who once depended on me. I started visiting the neighborhood where the network had operated. I wanted to see the faces of the people whose lives had been touched, invaded, frightened, exposed. I watched their relief, their gratitude, and slowly, my anger started to fade. My son had risked everything to make this right. That was his redemption. That was his gift. One afternoon, as I sat in a quiet park near the old diner where I had first realized the van wasn't empty, I received a package. No return address. Inside was a small box. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside, a simple charm bracelet, engraved with MG on the clasp. A note followed. For hope. Ma, keep it close. Love, Marcus. I held it to my chest and whispered into the wind. I don't know if he was alive when he sent it, or if this was a last gift, but somehow, it was enough. Enough to feel him near again. Enough to breathe. Enough to forgive myself for feeling guilty for not seeing the danger sooner. Forgiveness, I realized, wasn't just for him. It was for me too. For every mistake I made in trying to protect him. For every harsh word I'd thought but never said. For every night I had doubted his intentions. Forgiveness was a lifeline, not a sign of weakness, but of survival. I returned to the house once more, before selling it. Each step echoed like a heartbeat. I paused in the hallway that had felt like a cage, touched the walls that had silently watched me, and smiled. The memories were mine. Asterisk. The love was mine. And the fear, well, that had transformed into courage. I placed one final photograph on the mantel, Marcus as a child, chocolate on his cheek, eyes sparkling with innocence. Beside it, I left the folded note from the day he warned me not to go into the garage. I whispered a promise. I will protect your memory, baby. Always. Selling the house was difficult, but necessary. It wasn't the walls that made a home. It was the bond between a mother and her child. And no one, no matter how powerful, could steal that. Weeks later, I sat down to record a video, not for fame, not for attention, but for every mother who has ever felt powerless, for every child who has ever had to fight for truth, and for every family facing betrayal behind closed doors. I placed the camera in front of me, the single lamp casting a soft glow. I didn't rehearse. I didn't edit. I just spoke from my heart. My name is Lillian Green. I began, voice steady but soft, and this is my story. A story of fear, betrayal, courage, and love. A story that reminds us sometimes the ones we trust the most are also the ones who can hurt us the deepest, but also save us in ways we never imagined. As I spoke, I realized the power of narrative, the healing power of telling the truth. People responded, messages flooded in. I've been there. Thank you for your courage. This helped me feel safe again. My story became more than my own. It became a voice for anyone living in silence. But I never showed the footage Marcus sent me. Some things, I believe, are meant to stay between a mother and her child. It was his truth. My truth was sharing what he couldn't. Life slowly returned to a quieter rhythm. I adopted a cat, a small black feline who watched over me as I walked through my garden. Its gentle presence reminded me that life can rebuild, even from fear. The streets were calm, the house sold, the memories remained, and I realized that hope, once fragile, could grow again, stronger than ever. And yet, even in peace, I leave a question for you, the viewer. Have you ever trusted someone so deeply, only to discover a secret that changed everything? How did you respond? Did you have the courage to face the truth? Or did you run like I did, until the world forced you to confront it? Because that is the lesson my son left me. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is standing in it, feeling it, and acting anyway, even when everything feels against you. Even when the person you love is tangled in danger. So I ask you, as you sit here watching this, take a moment, reflect, hold your loved ones close, appreciate the trust that connects you, and remember, even in the darkest moments, love can guide you through. If you've ever faced a betrayal or a hidden truth in your family, comment below. Tell me your story. Let's start a conversation about courage, love, and survival. And if you want to see more confessional stories that reveal the hidden truths behind family life, subscribe and turn on notifications. You never know when a story might change your life, just like Marcus changed mine. And finally, from me to you, remember this. The lights may flicker, the cameras may watch, and secrets may linger in corners you never thought to check. But the heart, your heart, remains unbreakable if you choose to face the truth with courage, with love, and with hope. That's the story I leave with you today. The story of fear, survival, love, and redemption. The story of a mother who lost her son to danger, but found the strength to reclaim her life and honor the courage he showed in the darkest moments. Because in the end, the truth is what saves us, always.